Okay, so the first topic I want to talk about on this Sunday evening has to do with a certain pandemic going on right now, a certain virus, and basically how a lot of things are reopening as we speak, but now are suddenly being considered to be reclosed again. And fine, and here's the thing. It's kind of weird that all of a sudden you have certain politicians, mostly a certain Republican president, running for a re-election, getting ready to go back on the campaign trail, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's this huge spike, if you will. There's this huge, tremendous spike in cases of this virus, of this pandemic. And I'm not trying to say none of that's true or anything, but it's kind of weird that all of a sudden we're getting a spike, a resurgence of viruses and hospitalizations as a result. And depending on how you feel about it, a lot of people have come out actually, and when you look on Facebook and this gets reported, you look on Twitter and this gets reported, all across social media, this gets reported as something to be taken seriously, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Just checking something there. But like I said, don't get me wrong, it is something to be taken seriously. When you have a lot of those reports coming out on social media at these various sites, and some of the reactions via emojis are, rolling eyes, laughing, stuff like that, it's because basically a lot of the folks that do that pretty much feel the same way that many others do. That isn't it a coincidence that all of a sudden President Trump decides he's going to go on the campaign trail. He's going to start campaigning in places like Jacksonville and Oklahoma and Houston and all that. And suddenly we got a spike. Suddenly we got these spikes in viruses. Suddenly the cases have gone back up. And a lot of people pretty much look at that, and the reason they give these reactions through emojis and everything is because they pretty much feel that what's being reported, yes, partially is true, but the rest of it is bull. In other words, there's a lot of BS. That yes, part of it's true, part of it's BS. And the reason they feel that part of it's BS is because even though media outlets and other sources are talking about, I should say, the rise, if you will, the rise of, cases around the country or in certain states around the country, they're not talking about the other rise of recoveries, the other rise of people becoming immune. None of that's being taken into consideration. It's just about, the cases we got new resurgence of cases, da 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 da. And here's why people, again, don't take it seriously. I mean, they do take it seriously, don't get me wrong, but here's why they partially take it seriously. It's because deep down, and I kind of agree with them, is if you don't like Trump being in office, you don't want him campaigning for re-election, then why don't you just come out and say it? Why don't you be truthful for once and say, the reason we're saying there's a resurgence of virus cases and hospitalizations over the resurgence of recoveries and immunizations. The reason we're saying that is because we don't want Trump in office. We don't want him becoming president again. It's like, to a lot of people that, again, look at this as being partially true, but mostly BS. To a lot of them, it's like, why doesn't the media, why doesn't some of the sources like doctors, scientists, politicians come out and say, the reason we're reporting an increase in cases is we just don't want Trump campaigning and becoming president again because we don't need another 4 years of that. It's like, why? That's why people react the way they do. Yes, they understand it's a serious issue. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of people are saying that if people want protesting in the thousands, if not the billions, as well as rioting and looting over the past week or so, or past few weeks, then maybe these resurgences wouldn't be happening. But even with that, they feel that the numbers are being exaggerated because of the fact that nobody wants Trump to be running for office again. They don't want him being reelected. So they're going to come up with any way to make sure that campaign doesn't occur. But here's the problem. You want to look at numbers. There's a number of people that don't believe the BS that comes out of some of the news outlets, that believe some of the BS that comes out of some of these politicians and, you know, scientists and all that, that suddenly have decided, oh, we got some new cases that just developed and new hospitalizations because of that, and we need to we might have to reconsider reclosing stuff and everything. Again, it's like, if you don't want Trump in office, then suck it up and say it. Just say, oh, we're just saying this because even though partially it is true that there is a bit of a resurgence, we just don't want Trump campaigning. Just say it. Don't be afraid not to say it. Just come out and say it. And I think that's why we're suddenly hearing about a resurgence in virus cases and all that, over the evenly, if not more, resurgence of recoveries and immunizations and all that. So to me, I have to agree that even though partially it is true, and it partially has to do maybe with the protests and the riotings and all that, that the rest is nothing more than exaggerated BS. And if they don't want Trump or certain people in office, then they need to suck it up and just admit it. That's all. But that's all I'm going to say for the first topic. Now, on to our second one.